So, welcome back to another episode of MotoGP Max podcast, and I'm here tonight with Jake and Ghost Rider. How are you doing, boys?
Hunky dory.
Very good, very good. Good to be back, Mac. Good to be back.
Sure is. And so let's talk, I suppose, a little bit about what we're going to cover tonight. So, I definitely think we have to cover the British Grand Prix, what we thought of it, good, the bad, and the ugly. Also, it's a big month for Honda, with Mark having I suppose, one of the biggest checkups that he's going to have, that they can put maybe a calendar of events together to see can he get out testing. I'd also like to talk a little bit about maybe something might be a bit controversial, lads. Don't know what your thoughts will be on this, but since Rossi is retired, we haven't really seen him around the paddock, and I'm sure he's in communication with the VR46 Academy, but when you look at the likes of what went on with Pecco, even Marini, and currently Vietti, they seem to be losing the head a small bit, and I wonder, is it the influence of Rossi not being in the paddock starting to impact them? And then finally, lads, we'll go through an unfortunate incident in the Suzuki 8 Hours, Gino Ria accident. So I do have an update from his family on that. Now, just so people know, we're shooting this on Wednesday, the 9th of August. So if you're watching this on Saturday, the 13th, this is why some news might have been, you might already know, or videos that you might have already seen from the channel, but so I suppose we'll just start with Ghost. What did you think of the British Grand Prix? Did you watch it again after commentating it on the live show?
I did, Mac. I read a lot into it as well around Silverstone. I looked at a lot of photos, a lot of images. I really myself. I said to my wife, because we were there, as you know, in the UK, and it was very hot, and it was, we could have easily stayed for what we if we'd planned it or thought of it in advance, we could have stayed and been there at Silverstone, and I thought it was a fantastic racing in it. We could talk for hours about Silverstone itself, but my heart would be for for MotoGP in the UK. You couldn't beat Donington.
I think so too, yeah, if I'm honest. And I did think, we'll talk about the racing in a second, but I did think I just think Silverstone, you're just too far away from the action. Look, it's designed for Formula One cars and car racing, right? But I thought it was kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek. Not sure if you remember, on the grid in Mugello, the Silverstone CEO was on the grid, and he was talking about the poor attendance. And when you look at a couple of weeks ago, the British Grand Prix was on there for Formula One, and there was like nearly 150,000 people in the grandstands at extraordinary inflated prices compared to what a MotoGP ticket costs in the UK, and there was only 41,000 people in the race on Sunday. Do you know what I mean? It was very, in my view, it looked quite empty because it's such a big track. But I think somewhere like Donington Park, you're right, getting the people closer to the action will definitely help it out. Jake, what did you think of the race?
Oh, it was a great race. You couldn't beat it. I mean, it had action and drama and the whole. And Espargaro, I felt so bad when he flipped off the top. I thought he was done. Like, is he? First off, I didn't know he was going to, go and practice again. And they're just like, well, yeah, he'll be back in a half an hour. I'm going, man, he got some cojones on it, doesn't he? Jesus.
Yeah.
That's what we like to see, Jake.
Yeah, and Pecco, he didn't look like he was up to anything. Yeah, you didn't count him into the race. He didn't sound like he was up to it. He didn't look like he was up to it, and he just pulled it out of the hat.
Yeah. So, like, just to go back about Aleix Espargaro's crash, right? Obviously, look, it was soft tire and whatever, or hard tire, and it wasn't up to temperature, right? But what I really, really, really liked was how uncomfortable the Aprilia CEO was about him getting back on the bike. I don't know, did you see the interview with him?
No.
But like, you could see he was like, like his mentality was us normal road racing or motorbike and road racing fans or whatever, right? But it was just like, you know, let him go recover now. He can make up the places tomorrow. Like there was still a bit of confidence in the bike, but like, and his exact words were, "He doesn't need to be a hero today."
That's good to hear.
And I was like, and it struck me because
Well done, Aprilia. Chapeau, as to say.
Yeah,
fantastic.
They weren't forcing him to get on the bike. If you want to get on the bike, get on the bike. But like you could see, he was actually uncomfortable with him getting on the bike. Do you know what I mean? And even when the doctor said he's fine and this, that, and the other, you could see. But when he did his first lap, then he was like, okay. You could see that they interviewed him again. He's like, yeah, look, he's going to go again. And now I'm a little bit more comfortable that he said everything is okay. So, and it was just, for me, it was just really good to see that they were looking after the rider. You know, the rider welfare was there. You know, normally they'd be quite po-faced or like, you know, but like you could see that he was like, you know, he's just hurt himself. Give him a chance. Do you know what I mean? Kind of mentality. Do you know what I mean? Don't be a hero today. Rest up, recuperate for tomorrow if you're able. But that crash, man, I was really worried when I saw his letters split open. Do you know what I mean? Like that frightened me because like he was on his stomach with split open letters. Do you know what I mean? So that was skin to tarmac and going over curbs and into dirt and that. You know, look,
get skinned.
But, yeah, and like he did have a few marks on the chest, but Pecco then for me, I thought Pecco was exactly how I expected Pecco to be. Actually, no pressure.
Really,
no pressure. Like, if we honestly sat down here and said, so, and we had this conversation in chats as well. Like, people said, I can't see Fabio throwing away points. It just happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, Pecco going for the championship, you know, he has no pressure. He's most people, even myself, kind of have thought that like it is a very, 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 very long shot. So all he has to do now is go ride his bike, do what he needs to do. So worry about the championship when it's time to worry about the championship.
Oh, did you notice though that Valentina Rossi told him to pick the tire, and he was going to pick another tire, and he didn't want to catch hell from Rossi again, and stayed with the front tire he had, and it ended up being the right choice.
It was, yeah. Well, look at Zarco. Didn't Zarco crash? No, Zarco was on the same. Zarco was actually going to go on the soft tire, and he moved to Pecco's tire, which was the medium.
Didn't he change the rear tire to the soft?
No, the front. No, he went front. The front he changed to medium from soft to medium front.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
And he just said he couldn't get the feeling, but yeah, I think it only benefits us lads to have more into thing. And there's a video I have coming up soon, and it's questioning about Maverick. And I reckon 2 more bounces onto the podium in the next 3 races. Maverick could be a talking point that at least for 3rd or 4th in the championship. I can't see him catching 100 points on Quartararo, but I can see either him going up or Pecco or Aleix going down a bit. Do you know what I mean? So,
hey, you call it. I had more doubts than you had.
Yeah. Like Sleep in Fairness said, I think it was Zarco fastest man on Friday, and he was super fast.
Sleep pulled that one. He did.
Yeah.
Credit where it's due.
Yeah, he did pull that one on for Friday. Yeah. So I don't know. I think overall the racing was quite good. You know, again, you know, what do you think of Mir and Rins? I was really surprised with the Suzukis though.
Mir and Rins, yeah. I mean, look, it's. I heard a quote today, and it was quite. It caught my attention. It wasn't my idea. Somebody came up with it. One of these commentators, and it said, HRC should buy out Mir's contract now and get him on their bike. Get him
Mir's-
onto Honda right now for the rest of the season.
Oh,
They're right-
I was gonna say you threw me there.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Think about it. Think about it. Right? Just think about it. HRC, buckets of cash, arsenal of dollars behind them. Money's no object. Pay Suzuki 5 minutes. Suzuki, you're finished. There's no point. It's a doomsday.
Right.
It's going nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, if and Alex, or what do you call him? Juan Mir. Juan, he keeps crashing. You know, he's nowhere in that team. You know, he's nowhere with the potential of what that bike can do, what's possible to do with it. He's another guy that's suffering from. You're talking about Rossi's VR6 Academy. It shows you how much psychology plays a big part in modern day MotoGP.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Look, like we've been watching, I suppose the VR46 Academy recently, right? And like Pecco couldn't keep the bike upright. You know, Vietti has thrown away his championship lead, and like nearly had came a howler doing his long lap the other day. I actually saw the video. If it wasn't for his elbow, you know, he was face planted into the ground. You know, Marini was going forward, but is now starting to come back a small bit. The only one that's really performing and outperforming is Bezzecchi, but he knows no different. You know, he doesn't know what's going on in MotoGP. Do you know what I mean? He's like, yeah, man, I just want to ride my bike and go as fast as I can, and you know, do you know what I mean? I don't have any pressure.
He did say, just sorry to cut in, but he did say, make this point, Mark, that what he thought he was lacking at one stage, I think it was in Mugello, he said was Valentino in the box with them.
And I think that is a really, really powerful and good statement, because, like, I know Valentino had, like, geez, as a parent myself, I know kids take you away from what you do love, and when you get to do your time, you have to be picking, choosing on what you're doing, right? But like this academy and the riders that he has, right? They're falling apart. Like Morbidelli, he like his latest statement out is like, I just can't brake in the bike like Fabio does. I just don't know. Like he's at the end of it, and like all of these things, the academy will crumble very quickly if Valle doesn't get back in there and like mentor and coach the lads. It's great sending him a text and saying, pick the soft or pick the medium tire. You better pick the medium tire, rather than standing. So you can't be standing over him saying you pick that tire. Do you know what I mean? And when they tried to switch it on the grid later on, do you know what I mean? But I think it's maybe still a bit raw for Valle to be back in the paddock. Do you know what I mean? I still think if he had his choice, he would be riding. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Roger?
Yeah. I agree. I think it's an excellent point. I think you're a very credible point there. He is a racer true and true. He said, you know, that he would continue racing, and he has gone on. And that's a pretty tough championship that he's racing in. You know, that's a high level of quality.
Yeah.
That competition. But you're right. His absence away from the MotoGP paddock, I think, is having an effect on the academy. But you're right in your point that you said, for him, you know, Rossi, being back around that paddock and not racing, just he doesn't know how that's done. He's never done that. He's probably not interested in trying it. You know.
Yeah. He'd make a phenomenal team manager, though. I mean, if Agostini can do it, he could do it.
Yeah, but it comes to...
Sorry, cut me short.
It comes to kind of, I suppose, it comes to like, and you know this, Jake, right? You know, if you're a boxer and you've won world titles, right, and you've made hundreds of millions of dollars, right, all of a sudden getting punched in the face doesn't really sound as attractive as it once was when you were.
There's an expression. It's hard to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're wearing silk pajamas.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And like for Rossi, right, it must be hard for him to go back to a sport that he absolutely, truly loves and not participate in. And it's, you know, it's for me, I suppose I can understand it, but I think the lads really need him right now. And I think what is going to transpire, and I think if Pecco goes well in Austria and closes that gap down to 30 points ish, right? I know he's at 49 now, but if he gets that anywhere down in the next 2 to 3 races on Fabio to 25, 30 points, that's when he's going to need Rossi. But he needs Rossi probably 2 races before that. Rossi needs to set the mindset. Do you know what I mean? Set the goal. He needs to give Franco a kick in the arse, right? And he does. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know the bike doesn't suit Franco's style. That's absolutely fine. Remember Rossi. Remember how Rossi used to ride, and then Rossi tweaked that, wait a minute, I actually need to hang off the bike more, and he completely changed his style to suit that bike.
And he wasn't young when he done that.
And he wasn't. Yeah. So I personally think that's what Morbs needs to do, but I think Rossi needs to give him, because let's be fair, another year like he does this year on the Yamaha, he's gone. And what factory would take him?
None.
I'm surprised he's not gone now. Yeah.
So I think personally, like I think he needs to get back involved for that reason and that reason only. Do you know what I mean? It's just to help the lads. But look, he does have an awful lot of commitments. You know, I do follow him on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? He's either racing or partying with the missus. Do you know what I mean?
Dude.
So,
I think possibly some of these guys, especially I can't look. I'm not going to. I'll make a general statement. This is my opinion. I think some of these guys in the academies, in this academy anyway, they can become like big pop stars in Italy overnight. You know, with all the merchandise and the franchising and the marketing that's going on. You know, it's a very glitzy affair in Italy, and that's a different dimension. You know, from young fellas who are just used to being around bikes. You know, and just racing and and being around tracks and the smell of bikes and smell of rubber and the sound of the bikes. You know, 2 different worlds. And
you're right. It's a different. It's a gear change in lifestyle. It's a gear change in mentality as well, right? Because now you're going to have to be dealing with all this media and stuff that you're not used to. 100% right. But I do think the junior academy is coming to an end. You know, and they have signed Fantech Racing in cooperation with VR46. So
how does that work, Mac? Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
I don't. They haven't released the ins and outs of it, but right, they were running Fantech on the bike this weekend. I don't know. Did you notice that as one of their sponsors? And what I think is going to happen next year, but it will be Fantech Racing, but it will actually be the VR46 team running it.
Yeah,
that's my understanding. Now, that could all change, because I did think, and I genuinely did think, that he was going to sell his slots to Fantech and partner up with Yamaha Mastercamp. And that could still happen yet, but I think the formal agreement it has is that they're going to partner this year with sponsorship on the bike, and then Fantech will take over that. Now, will they use the VR46 people to run that team? That I don't know, but it will be really, really interesting to see.
Rossi would probably, you wouldn't know what he would do, but I'll tell you one interesting fact about Rossi. He does not worry.
No.
None of this is really gonna like, he'll see all these factors. I'm sure maybe it might take him a bit of time to get around to uncovering everything, all the areas that he could possibly give his attention. But I'm sure he's got dozens of other propositions for his time and his attention as well.
And he already has $50 million in the bank. Do you really worry at that point?
I think you do. And I think something like the academy in motorbike racing, because it's so dear to his heart, it is probably the thing that he goes to first. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I think he's, and as well, I do believe a little bit like Simo's dad. He feels a lot of responsibility to bring on those younger riders. But with stopping in Moto 3 now, that for this year, I think he'll stop Moto 2 and only be focusing on MotoGP next year. Personally, the main thing of it. But I suppose, look, it's a good thing. But I genuinely think the team and the academy need a more physical presence from him, especially in the coming races. If Pecco gets back on the winning streak, Pecco is going to need him for the run into the championship. That's just my opinion.
That's if he feels his role is like a guru to these guys. But he never came across as a guy that, you know, publicly seemed signed up to be a guru to all of these guys in public. You know, he was racing for himself.
Yeah.
Valentino was racing for himself, man.
He was.
Age, you change. You do change with age. You know, when you get older, you don't mind letting secrets out of the bag, especially and you don't mind teaching the young kids. It's you know, he knows it's not to go against them. It's not going to hurt him. He's not going to lose a race because he helped somebody out. You know, so
I always look at it in the way of, do you remember Prost and Senna, how bitter their rivalry was? Alain Prost versus Ayrton Senna in Formula One.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And I remember an interview with Alain Prost. He said, you know, myself and Senna, when we were competing, you know, we hated each other. Couldn't stand the sight of each other, even the smell of each other. You know, we could smell each other a mile away, and we'd make sure we would go the other direction so we don't beat the life out of each other.
Yeah.
But he said a few hours after he retired, Senna came to him and buried the hatchet straight away and was like, okay, you're no longer a threat. Do you know what I mean? And I do think very much so Rossi's mindset that everyone is no longer a threat as long as he's not racing in motorbikes, and he's going to give off what he is. I think, yes, he was definitely using the academy riders to keep himself faster and to learn the new way of riding that he had to learn.
Yeah.
But I do think he's was also doing it for legacy of who he was and the opportunities that he could give to people. So I do think there's still a bit of bravado in mentoring the academy riders. Again, it's just a little.
I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna bury the hatchet with Marquez, because when they asked him, "Are you ever gonna bury the hatchet?" he said, "Yeah, in about 20, 30 years."
He'd be well dead at that stage. Yeah.
I think that's bad form. That's bad form. He should be able to turn to Marquez and say, "Listen, like Prost and Senna there, you know, he's retired now. He should say to Marquez, listen,
look, you should just move on."
Yeah.
Well, look, saying that, look, I'd probably, if I was battling with someone for a championship or whatever, I'd probably have a hard time letting go. You know, if I got beaten fairly badly, or do you know what I mean? That would be pure hatred. But actually, as you brought Marquez up, so today's video that I put out just on Marc Marquez, you know, he has Alex put out that he has a doctor's appointment at the end of August, which is only a few weeks away, and you know that's going to set the timelines for when he's back. And like, my first initial thought of it actually was, you know, if it's towards the end of August, right, we have Misano, is it first week of September?
Yeah.
You know, that's not a long time, Joe, for them to get their house in order to get him back on the bike, you know? So it's like, you know, is he going to make this test? Do you want Marquez on, like, okay, Honda wants him on that bike for that test, right? But, you know, it's dodgy. Like, it's very, 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 very dodgy, you know? And I'll read something that I found. I'm not sure if it's even public yet or not, but I read something, a quote that Mark has said. He's like, I can't have another surgery, and I'm sure this time it's going to be okay. But these thoughts are always in the back of my mind. Some days are better than others. but that's part of the journey. It's been a struggle, and I fought for 2 days. No, I fought not for 2 days or 2 months, but for 2 years. So that doesn't really. So I think for me, that's like he knows this is the last chance. He knows that if this isn't right now, it's game over. Do you know what I mean? And for me, it shows a bit of doubt.
Yeah. I hear you, Mac. I hear you.
I'm a Mac. No, sorry, but guy Ghost.
No, I mean, look, we know we spoke about this. Like, listen, first and foremost, out of the box, I'd say I'm delighted to hear Mark speaking like that. I wish Mark well. I think he should consider these feelings seriously. You know, not to be listening to this podcast or anything, Mac, but you know,
he does. Yeah. He texts me there after and all. Thanks for being nice to me this week.
Yeah, but listen, guys, look at we've discussed this in many podcasts. It's it's an ongoing topic. Mark's health, his rehabilitation, his what's classed in the media as going back to 100% or his old self. The old self does not exist. Going back to 100% does not exist. Any of us that knows anything about bike racing and injuries from motorcycle accidents, we know the body does not go back to 100%.
No.
And especially after 4 operations.
Yeah, that operation took the boot. I mean, it's not like he cut his arm. I mean, or he had scrapes.
That was a
substantial.
That was a Saw movie operation that he
that
he
hit that on the nose. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I just think with when I look at Honda, and look, I can't blame Honda for wanting to get him on the bike. Right, the bike is a piece of poo that they have. Right, they're bringing out their 2023 one in the first week of September. Right, Paul Espargaro's first impressions of the 2022 bike was super. Do you know what I mean? And look what's happened.
He was told to say that. Yeah,
probably, but. And now Mark kind of said it had potential too, so we won't go too far down the road. But Nakagami, if he keeps it upright, it's fine. But I just think they need Mark back on the bike, and I think they're hedging all their bets that Mark is going to be there. And I don't know, it's the first time I've really heard Mark in a way be a little bit doubtful on his recovery.
That's interesting. It's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. I wasn't aware of that comment. That is an interesting perspective. As I said, I wish Mark well. I believe that he should consider these feelings. You've mentioned it a lot of times. What you're talking about now about Honda's strategy. We had many comments today on that video you put out. The subject of what's happening in Honda. I mean, so many calls for Alberto to get the bullet. It ain't happening. Alberto is in position. Stefan Bradl came out yesterday or over the weekend and was saying that Japan have no idea what the communication between Alberto and Japan, it's non-existent. Japan have been focused on the 8 hour. That's finished now. I heard Toby mention earlier on. He says, an interesting fact about MotoGP. He said every year after the Suzuka 8 hour was finished, Honda would come back to GPs and it would 5% faster straight away. The first race after Suzuka, they had it on the shelf, they plugged it in and went for it. Hondas every year. Now, even that wouldn't make a difference. You know what I mean?
I was just when you said that, I was going to be, well, that's 12th place. that's exactly what I was going to say with it. Is just like, and it is very disappointing to see Honda where Honda are, right? And I think it's very frustrating to see that they're still banking on one person. Yeah. So they're still doing the same mistake that got them into this hole in the first place. So, and yes, okay, they want to win races, but you want to be able to win races with more than one rider. Do you know what I mean? Because that rider will crash and fall, and if you've another one that's right behind him, hopefully he won't fall. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I just think with when it's coming out, or this new bike coming out, I tell you someone who I would put on it though, for a crack off it,
Go on.
be Lacona.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a real two fingers to KTM.
Yeah.
He did really well in the Suzuki 8 Hours. He's done quite a good job, being honest, in World Superbikes.
And you know how bad that bike is in World Superbike.
Yeah, and no, look, the bike has made a step forward from last year, and I want to be fair to Haslam and them, right?
No, I think it was Lacona. That bike still can't feel the front end. He's dumping that thing, but he's trying so hard.
That dude is talented. He gives it his all. He's special. There's something special about that rider.
Yep.
Yeah, and I definitely do think he does deserve another go off or a cut off MotoGP. Now, would you class him better than Mir? I'm not too sure, but like if Mark came back and said that his shoulder wasn't right, you know, he's probably one of the ones that I would look to sign.
Listen, he should be in there now. He should be riding the test bike.
He should.
Let Bradle.
As he's in Japan.
Yeah.
You know?
He should be riding the test bike.
Yeah.
They have to build it around someone. Do that and pay Juan Mir out of his contract at Suzuki and put him on the bike straight away. Or else just bring Ika in. Be bold and daring. Either Ika or Toprak. One or the other.
That's a very good one. You know, Toprak, you know, okay, he's not coming in this year, but next year on a Honda.
I don't know how good Toprak's going to be, and I'll tell you why. And it's an elephant in the room. Bikes are now developed, and they have been since 2009 from the tires. They don't develop it for the rider. The rider is only for settings, which is a big thing with Marquez. The Bridgestones were front tire biased, which worked good for him. Now that everything's developed, the whole bike is engineered for the rear tire because Michelin's are rear biased. Yeah. So every time they go to put the settings that's good for a guy that runs the front tire, as Marquez does very hard, it's going contrast to the bike's development. So it's like it's a catch-22. Now, in Toprak, that's the same thing. He looks just like Marquez. You see him going to the corner with the rear wheel up. He looks like a young Marquez. Now, how well that's going to transfer to MotoGP now with a rear bias tire?
Are you telling me, Jake? Are you telling me now, really, that you don't want to see Toprak versus Jack Miller on who can do the longest stoppie?
I'd love to see that, but I think Toprak would. Because he goes into a corner, you know, at 100 yards on the front wheel, going 100 miles an hour.
Even if the Honda is still shit and Toprak gets on it.
Yeah, you still get to see the neat stop.
The two boys go on it. What Ghost, you were going to say something there?
Yeah, I was going to say, look at Alberto Puig, right? It's a disaster. I mean, whatever happens in there, but it's like as if he's got his head buried in the sand now. He's presiding over the worst record of Honda's racing history, right? They've never been disgraced like this. The Japanese are honorable men. Alberto's not talking to them. All his eggs are into one basket. He's like a gambler at the casino, playing at the high stakes table, and he's just put all his chips on Marquez and getting Marquez back in the game. That's what's going on here.
I know a good team manager that's coming available at the end of the year. Would you think Honda would think of him?
Would he go back?
I don't know. You know, he gave up his current job to come join this whole Suzuki thing, and Suzuki have up and left him after 3 months being back in the saddle. You know?
Yeah, that was nothing personal.
Poor bastards. Yeah,
there was nothing personal there, guys. Come on, there was nothing personal there. You know?
But let's face it, Honda just has a weak engineering team. They've been sitting on their hands for 10 years now, relying on Marc Marquez. Yeah. The bike when it was front biased, they just sat on the bike. It got a little worse every year because it had more horsepower every year, which overstressed the chassis, right? Then it got so bad he couldn't ride it. Then they come out with a new bike that totally throws him off, which I was all excited. I thought, good, brand new bike. I'm a tech guy. Let's see what it has. Yeah. And I said, give it a break. But after a while, I say, you call a spade. It's a piece of shit, You're
right.
So, it was like, okay, well, they just screwed up. and they're just weak. And they either have to get better engineers, and in HRC, I've heard this a few times in different shows that's like the redheaded stepchild. The engineers, that's if you don't make out in the car, if you're crap there, we'll just send you downstream to the motorcycle division. When Honda died, that was it.
This is going back to the old days of when the 4-stroke started, right? Do you remember the Hondas kept blowing up because they couldn't get the valve timing right for the pneumatic valves?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you remember that they had massive issues with their engine? And I always remember Toby Moody said, he's like, what is the problem in HRC? And Jules was like a little bit confused by it. And he's like, they have a very successful Formula One team that uses pneumatic valves in their engine. They're reliable, they're safe. Why aren't they talking to each other? And like you're right. It's like the MotoGP or the HRC function of Honda is just like cut off from everything else, and it's the dunce corner. Do you know what I mean? If you made them, like if you designed a Formula One engine and it blew up, you go to HRC. On your here's your set of golf clubs.
You know what I mean?
Your set of golf clubs the way you go.
Here, guys, come on! It's the prestigious brand.
It was a prestigious brand. That's what my thing on is.
Remember Honda at the TTs. Remember when Joey was riding a Honda? Look at their legacy in TTs. It was a prestigious brand. They were able to put out fast bikes.
But now they're finishing 13th.
Yeah, it's one of those. They were good, okay, but you know what I mean. You're always saying you remember when you look at Honda and say they're good. Everybody's going, yeah, you remember this? Do you remember this? And it's always 20 years ago.
Well, look, but I think little things like that have changed, and look, there are nostalgia days as well. But I think Ghost is right in the way that the Honda brand is. Majority of people would know it for bikes, right? And it is a prestigious brand and whatever, but it's not the powerhouse that it once was. Do you know what I mean? And when there was, it was definitely one of the number one motorbike manufacturers for MotoGP. Right? And that you could see it, from 2-stroke, how time had changed. Do you know what I mean? And into 4-stroke, okay, it dominated, but when you look at the last couple of years of the 2-stroke, it didn't really dominate. Do you know what I mean? Because it was all focused on the 4-strokes.
Yeah,
and
I just think,
they
were way fast.
And when 4-stroke came out, they were miles ahead of everyone else. Do you know what I mean? All Rossi had to do was turn up.
Yeah. Well, he could ride that. He could ride that Honda, and he could ride that Honda with half of the electronics that they have today.
Exactly.
That's another interesting fact about Valentino Rossi. Valentino Rossi, at that time and in the 2-stroke era, in that stage of his early career, the reports on him in the garage was in terms of telemetry and what the information that he could give the tech guys and the mechanics and everybody in his team, and the way he could give them multiple readouts of what was going on in the bike. Stuff that the data that they're capturing today automatically with machines, with computers. But he had a mind that could process that. And you know what? It sure was exciting to watch.
And his lap consistency was phenomenal too. He would put those laps out there like a metronome. But I mean, they wouldn't be off a tenth of a second for 20 laps or 15 laps. And passing, he was nobody ever better than him at passing.
I was reading an article today about Dovizioso, and his engineer was saying to him about him. He's like, okay, obviously he's not where he wants to be, but his technical understanding of data and how he's able to tell you what is going on with the bike, he said, I've never seen it before. He's like, it is just another level of understanding. And look, that's where MotoGP is going. Unfortunately, there's a sensor for this and there's tracking for this, and if you fart on the bike now, it will a sensor will pick that up too. Do you know what I mean? But I suppose what I do think probably is one of Honda's major drawbacks, or one of Honda's major problems, is not is okay, chassis and whatever. But and Jake, I know you'll go on a rant about testing here now or whatever, right? But I think the major problem Honda have is they don't have Ducati's mentality.
Right.
Right.
The passion's gone.
No.
No,
I personally think, right, Gigi Dall'Igna saw Aprilia put a wing on the back of the tail of the bike, right?
Mhm.
So your man just put something together, so thought about it for a while, put something on there, doesn't really care if it was a success or a failure. They just tried it, and they didn't care who saw it. Do you know what I mean? Because
Right.
it's a work in progress. Now, if Honda was to trial a rear aerodynamic device, you wouldn't see that for 8 months. Your man saw this in Catalunya, which is only a couple of races ago. They designed it over the course of a couple of weeks. The first opportunity they got to try and test it, boom, out they went and tested it. Straight away. Who cares who sees it? Do you know what I mean? Boom,
Yeah.
go. Boom, go. But Honda, that would have to go through a process and a check process and a double check process and a triple check process where your man is like, oh, that's off the 3D printer. We'll like you look at it, look at the pictures of Bastianini's bike. The thing is held on with screws.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
You know,
Most
it's not
prototype stuff
bonded
is
on.
crude.
It's not, huh?
Most prototype stuff is crude.
Yeah, and that's all they were. That pure and like I know you were saying about when before we were having the discussion about Ducati had to take time to get the engine right and the mappings and all that, but Ducati have this in-season testing mindset that they'll test anything. If you they would test, is this sticker faster than that sticker? Do you know what I mean? Sure, just bang it on there, and I will see. And it's not like has to be in a scheduled day and has to be in such a rider, and the wind pressure has to, or the air pressure has to be this, and the air speed has to be that. Do you know what I mean? It's go out, just go. And we're not seeing that with Honda, right? Like, I think with the only updates on the Honda that we saw in British Grand Prix was larger air vents at the bottom. Taka was running a new frame on
That was
Friday.
to stop his foot burning, Mac.
Yeah, that was the stop. Yeah, but they saw. Yeah, that was
That's
poor.
so bad.
And they were running a new air scoop for the rear tire. That's all they were running. And you're like, wait a minute. You had 6 weeks off, no MotoGP. I would be like, if I was Joe, I'd be like, okay, what do we have coming? We need to get all these parts out, tested, run into the season. We got to get better. And it's just a pure mentality, and maybe it's a Japanese mentality. I don't know, because we didn't see much from Yamaha either, right?
No, they're the same. They're pretty much the same type of lead time.
You know, and exactly, and it's something that, like, they will never catch up unless they change that mindset.
It's a corporate mentality. It's a corporate mentality, more or less.
Yeah,
it is, but like it maybe it's because they're too in love with their brand, whereas Ducati are like, if we're flying down the road and the wing falls off, well, it was a prototype. We're testing it. That's what happens. So I mean, rather than that would be a failure to Honda or Yamaha. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
listen, Yamaha has pedigree far beyond Ducati in racing.
Does yeah,
You know?
massive.
Yeah.
But
Incredible brand in bike racing. Look what they achieved last year. I know everybody talks about Yamaha and the M1, and they talk about Jarvis like as if he's a clown, and there's a lot of that type of
the only reason I think Jarvis is a clown, and I'll be very open and honest to this, is that he doesn't have a performance clause in Franco Morbidelli's contract.
Yeah, well, look
If
at
you
Go ahead.
if you look at Yamaha's production bikes, okay, if you look at Japan, who has the most innovation? It's been Yamaha for the past 40 years. Who came out with the leading front suspension, the single shock rear suspension, the
Monoshock, yeah.
Yeah, the monoshock and the twin spar aluminum chassis. It was all Yamaha. That nobody else put it out in production. Yamaha always was the first one out with everything. as far as Japanese. And then when the Europeans had enough money, let's face it, they sold enough bikes, then they could innovate. Because before that, they just didn't have enough money. They were just kind of cut corners and make a bike, you know?
Yeah. Well, look, and I think you hit a good point there as well. Like Ducati now have funding. Like, do you know, okay, they don't have massive funding. You know, Aprilia do have funding as well from a very good, solid.
Hey, Mark, let's nothing like the Ducati money. Aprilia have done more in the last 2 years than Ducati have done in 10 years. You know, and you can talk about Luigi, you know, and the great innovator. He left Aprilia. He left a serious Italian racing pedigree and walked away to their competitor. And he's there, and he's innovative. He's a cracking engineer, and he's definitely changed the face of MotoGP, and you know the progression of the innovation of the shall we say inverted commas prototype race bike. But my opinion is, and I'd say this, you know, he's done nothing for the sport. Why couldn't he innovate a bike that could go around corners? And
I'll give you one. I'll throw you off though. Ducati has a less of a budget than Suzuki even did. You know that?
Yeah, but look, they're still in my view, they're better funded than they ever were, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
Is kind of my point, right?
Yeah, because they have outside sponsors too that would do it, like Mooney. They make Mooney pay for that bike. That's it's a turnkey deal. Where Suzuki, they don't have a sponsor.
Yeah.
So they had to pay everything out of pocket.
But I just think like with that then, right? Like Gigi is a really good engineer, right? But Aprilia took the right steps as well, right? They knew they knew chassis dynamics, engine dynamics. Like I don't know, like they moved from the 72-degree V4 to a 90-degree V4, right? Mm-hmm. And that was realistically, right? It is to gain more power. No, someone said that it wasn't, but it is to gain more power because they wanted to run a rear exhaust valve. Okay, and they couldn't do that with the 72, and they were because the 72 used cross pipes in the exhaust. So if they put a rear exhaust valve on it, it would have just went across the other pipes anyway. So it would have had zero effect. So. So that's the mentality change behind what happened with him. Then they they brought in the Formula One guy who had in my view, a really good understanding of chassis and vehicle aerodynamics, right? And you can literally see, you don't have to spend millions developing aerodynamics. You just have to spend the right money on the right people to get it. And I think they've done that. Both sides have done that.
To an extreme. They've taken it far to an extreme. Listen, there was British Superbike, World Superbike riders, you know, back in the, I can't think of any now off the top of my head, but back in the year after Fogarty, who were using wind tunnel technology in their preparation for their season in racing. It's been done. There's loads of speed tunnels. You know, the aerodynamics of the bike, you know, is being primarily led by Luigi. He is the force. Aprilia have only followed what Luigi's doing. Those devices on the rear, it's designed to create dirty air for the rider behind.
No. I'll bet you money. I have 2 engineers in the family, okay? And if you look at B Sport engineering, it is made to make it cleaner, because I'll tell you why. If it's cleaner, you can't pull a draft.
Right.
If it's dirty, you can pull a draft. A lesser bike can come up and grab a draft and pass. If it's cleaner, then you can't. Okay, so it doesn't make sense. And I have 2 engineers, and they laughed and they said, "Do you think those 2 little things?" They said it doesn't make sense for them to make dirty air.
Wait till you see the pictures that I have of Bastianini.
I know Bastianini's Stegosaurus, right? But that's to get the thing off of the rider, and it's still to make clean air. It makes no sense whatsoever to make dirty air.
But I actually got, I actually found a picture of what the airflow is doing, and I'll show it in the video quite soon, actually. So I won't give it away now. But yeah, look, aerodynamics.
Eventually, it comes back and makes it dirty again. But that's you can't get around that. You know what I mean?
It's going to interrupt, Jake, with the rider behind and make it more. It's like a deflection.
No, but it interrupts it. It makes it cleaner, so you can't make a draft. Eventually, it has to come back together. But motorcycles are about as aerodynamic as a brick.
Yeah, but I think Jake, what Ghost is saying is that it's if it creates a vortex coming off the back of the bike, right?
Yes.
It will create drag on the back of the bike, right? Which will create a dirty wash, right? And what the dirty wash will do is that if you have aerodynamics on the front of your bike, it will unstable the front of your bike so that you won't want to stay in that draft. So you
If
will
you're
have to
behind it, but not behind
So
it,
you-
it's not going to make it. Eventually, it will. I told you, B Sport, the tricks of MotoGP explained, and they said the same thing. And I got 2 engineers, and all they did. I got a cousin who worked for Boeing for 30 years. He said, "There's no way." Matter of fact, they laughed. They said, "My God, the things are only about the size of your hand." I don't care if you're going 200 miles an hour. It's not that big a deal.
But what we mean is like the Stegosaurus ones, something that size could cause a vortex, and that will cause drag on the back of the bike that's going forward. But coming off the back of that, with that vortex spinning,
you do not want dirty air, because if it crosses a vortex, that's going to be able to grab a draft off the back.
Yeah.
If you grab a draft,
the
that's
important thing. The ability to grab a draft is the important factor here. So any technology that interferes with it or makes it redundant is against the spirit of racing, I believe.
What, making it so you can't grab a draft?
Yeah.
I can understand that, but I'm just saying that it doesn't make it's not dangerous. It's dangerous. It's not doesn't make it more dangerous for the guy. It actually makes it safer for the guy behind you. But he just can't pass you.
I like.
You know what I mean,
if I'm very honest, I like the idea of the front wings, like say on the Ducati V4R, right? Small and subtle, that might have an effect. It is getting a bit out there, all right. So, like, it's only a couple of years before you see a Formula One style rear wing on the back of these fucking things. Do you know what I mean?
I was talking to them about that. They said because a bike leans, they said the aerodynamic.
You know what I mean? It'll just. I suppose, Jake, what I mean is that, like, watch someone getting into a Formula One car last year. Watch someone getting into. They had to step over these monstrosities to get out.
But you can't have that with a bike because it leans. It's a limiting. It kind of limits itself. The aero kind of limits itself to a certain amount because the bike leans, and you have drag on one side more than the other, like a spider gear in the rear.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
that's always going to be there.
It'll just be more aerodynamic parts than actual thing, and I think that will ruin what a core. Like if I look at my little RS 250, or if I look at my RGV 125 or 250 or 125, it's just so perfect because like the plastics were just the plastics. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was the bare minimum to get you out of the wind and do the job, and I think for me that's what I grew up with bikes, and they're moving further and further away from what the core of the bike is, and more of a machine. Do you know what I mean?
But that's what MotoGP is. If you don't want that, go to Moto2. I mean, we have a class for nothing with nothing on it and just rider. That's Moto2.
And you've got super bikes as well.
It's more, where's the limit? Do you know what I mean? Because now, like, you're going to have front wings, rear wings, side wings.
No, I was talking. The next thing it'll go to, it will go to ground effects. The wings will come off, okay, and it'll go to. You remember when ground effects they had no wings on it in Formula One?
Yeah.
Do you remember those days? Yeah. It'll go kind of to that, and he said that'll make even less dirty air behind, as long as the bike behind is the same strength. As long as it has the same power, then you'll still have passing. But for a lesser bike, you've got to step up to the plate, because if you have less power, you're not going to pass with the aerodynamics. That's all there is to it.
So you reckon, Jake, it's not going to affect passing?
If the bikes are, if say you have the Ducati and it has 200 or 350 horsepower, we'll say in the future, and then you have the Aprilia and that has 350 horsepower, then it's going to stay a status quo. But if you have a bike with 300 horsepower, where it used to be to a 350. And it used to be able to grab a draft pass. Yeah. No, it's good, but the lesser bike is not going to be able to pass.
Yeah.
So that's where you see if a Ducati has more horsepower, where all of a sudden you can't pass, the guys can't pass them anymore. It's making it tougher and tougher for them to pass because that air is cleaner behind it. You know?
And look at Formula One last year, right? you couldn't drive behind a car because of all the dirty wash off of it, right? Your
Yeah.
aerodynamics just wouldn't perform the way they were supposed to, right?
But they got
Now-
6-foot wings in the back and the front. The
I know,
whole
I
car's
know.
turned into a wing. Yeah.
But like that, all that was just pure dirty wash into the fella behind you, right? So if you're going through a corner, the air is unsettled and destabilized, right? So your wing won't function the way it is, right? And look at it now, right? That they have literally, if you could imagine, the way the aero works is that it flicks nearly a 90-degree angle coming off the back of the car, so the other car can literally get in behind it. But
because I can tell you, because a car is flat and it turns flat, it'll never happen on a motorcycle because it has to turn.
Oh, I know, I know that. But all I'm just saying is that it is easier to pass now in Formula One than it was last year, Jordan, because they got the regulations somewhat right. I think just with MotoGP, we're heading down a road where I don't think we want to go. That's just my thing. Like, I don't mind wings, but I don't want stacks of wings either. Do you know what I mean? I do want to look at a beautiful motorbike racing.
Well, that's why I disagree. I think for MotoGP and only MotoGP, because it's a prototype class, but it won't get to the multi-stack wings. It's gonna
you're right. You have to keep a prototype. That's what Luigi and the guys are saying. And look, they all agree in that. The Japanese are going along with them as well. You know, they can't really get out of it that easy. From what I can see, all 6 manufacturers have to agree together.
Yeah, Honda wants it all gone because they're so far behind.
Yeah, look, I'm not, and look, I just clarify my point, right? I just want to see it that it's regulated right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
That we're not going down the route that Formula One found itself in, where they had to put a DRS flap in the rear wing so that you can be able to pass the car in front of you. That's completely against the spirit. But it's a fix for a problem that they engineered themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that's
you are talking, like I said, you are talking apples for apples and oranges, because one's a flat thing that's almost an airplane, and the other one has to lean. As long as it has to lean, they like I said, I got all engineers in my family going out the wazoo, and they're all very good at it.
Jake, I'm saying, man,
and it kind of go to ground effects. Go ahead.
All I'm saying is that one can't follow another, right? In Formula One, right? And they can't outbrake each other without DRS. Do you know what I mean? Or
I just don't like a second engine is a bunch of bullshit.
All I'm saying is I just don't want to see MotoGP go down that route. So I think things do need to be regulated within it. Lads, we're almost up in time. I just wanted to mention Gino Ria had an off in the Suzuka 8 Hour in practice 2, and he suffered some terrible injuries, head injuries and clavicle injuries. He's still in sedation at the moment, and so this happened on Saturday, and there's been kind of radio silence from the I suppose the fraternity over there and whatever. And normally when you hear kind of radio silence, you know, you think this is really, really bad, but it's actually Japanese culture that they wouldn't release a press statement until the family was there and informed.
Oh, that's a good thing.
So, but look, just an update on Gino Ria. He obviously, look, he sustained head injuries, and the clavicle injury. He is still in a coma, just to let the rest the brain so that the swelling is under control and his temperature is under control. Not sure on when they're going to wake up, but I suppose, look, the thoughts and prayers are with him. You know, we remember him from Moto 2, British Superbike. You know, very nice guy. You know, created his own business to run his own race team at one stage and everything. So I suppose, look, just best wishes and hope he comes through in it.
We got to keep Gino in our prayers, folks. We got to keep Gino in our prayers for sure.
Definitely, yeah. And listen, on that note, lads, we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for joining. It was always great to have a good chat. Love winding Jake up about aerodynamics and clean air and dirty air.
It's a tech show. You have your resident tech expert, you know.
Yeah.
At least I have a family of tech experts. I'm just putting it through. Just channeling it through.
I can imagine the WhatsApp now when he sees the Ducati Wings one. I'd say I'm going to get killed. So my engineer friend said this.
Oh, that's bullshit. Yes.
Yeah, I've been murdered. But look, it's just my opinion, and I've learned this time to quote say I am not an aerodynamicist, but this is my opinion.
Yeah, but I have aerodynamicists in the family, and you should see. I'd put them on. They would go through the goddamn screen if you told them that. They'd be like, "What?"
Yeah, listen, look, each to their own. But look, look, lads, just thank you very much.
Been a pleasure, Mac. Been a pleasure.
Yeah, and look, we'll try and do another podcast next week. Lots of stuff
overall,
coming up.
MotoGP is looking very good. Silverstone, it was a fantastic event. They're down on figures. The left address, that's a Silverstone issue, but the racing, the championship, it's just top drawer. It's top drawer.
Yeah. Excited to see what comes.
What was the top 8? The top 8 were within 1/10 of a second. This race, or 2/10 of a second. It was unbelievable.
Well, in one of the practice sessions or qualifying sessions or something like that, I think it was like the top 14 or something were within 9/10, or top 16 or something in 9/10 of a second.
And if you go halfway that, it's even way less. It's like unbelievable. If one guy farts, he slows him down enough not to make a position.
Ducati have a sensor on the back of the seat. They can tell when the riders do that.
Yeah, he has spaghetti for lunch.
Yeah. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining, and we'll wrap it up there.
Thanks a million, Mac.
Take it easy, guys.
Peace out. I just want to take a minute to also thank you for watching my videos and the support that you've shown so far. If you haven't subscribed already and you would like to subscribe, it would mean an awful lot to me if you did. I'm starting this channel realistically so that we can all enjoy MotoGP together, with the aim of streaming a live video when the GP races are on.